But we're jumping back into the book of Nehemiah. We have come a long way through his story. We've recognized that the people of Israel have worked hard rebuilding the wall. Nehemiah has been a phenomenal leader. They have come together. They have shared resources and food. They have shared the work. They have faced opposition from outside and from inside. We've seen Nehemiah make personal sacrifices on behalf of the people to bring them together, to make sure everyone had food, had all of the tools that they needed. He's given the pep talks. He's rallied the troops. He stood up for himself. He has stood up for the people. And we've seen him and his unique relationship with God in his short little prayers that he inserts throughout this story of the rebuilding of the wall of Jerusalem. And we've seen his resolve. He is set. This is going to be accomplished. And today we hit a milestone in this story. Look with me at chapter 6, verses 15 and 16. The wall was finished on the 25th day of Elul. It had taken 52 days. When all our enemies heard the news and all the surrounding nations saw it, our enemies totally lost their nerve. They knew that God was behind this work. I don't know about you, but I love when something gets done. Like when you have that moment where everything is finished. It's almost like this big sigh of relief, right? Like, okay, you finish your yard work, like, all right, that's done. Or you do the honey-do list or the to-do list on the weekend, and like, okay, I'm done. Or you wrap up a big project you've been working on, and you tie a nice little bow on it, and you feel like, oh, okay, that's finished. I'm good. I feel accomplished. I feel like I've made progress. I feel like I can sit down and relax, finally. In fact, us humans are really good at celebrating finishes, right? Somebody retires. They've done decades at a job or decades in an industry, and they retire. What do? We throw them a party. We like halls of fames for baseballers and other people who have careers that need to be honored or recognized, or maybe they've completed finally. We have graduation parties, which we'll all be attending in the next few weeks anyway, right? We want to celebrate, hey, look, you finished college or you finished high school or you got your degree or your doctorate, and we want to celebrate those moments, even the small things when we feel like something is finished. And this is deep sense of relief. Because for most of us, when something is done or finished, it just means that something new is coming or something new is about to begin. And that's exactly the feeling I get when I read verse 15 of Nehemiah 6. Like, 52 days, all of that opposition, the wall is finished. Against all odds, the Israelites have pulled it off. Their neighbors are so impressed that they're talking about them. Did you see the wall around Jerusalem? It was so monumental of a finish, so grand, so exciting, so unreasonable that the only thing that their enemies on the outside could conclude was God must have been involved, because there's no way that those people, led by Nehemiah, could have pulled it off. Wow. Look at Jerusalem. Look at Nehemiah. Look at their God. It's finished. And the moment that everyone was waiting for, the moment we all kind of expect, that celebration, like I was thinking the next verse would say something like, so they threw a festival, or they had a feast, or they had a celebration, or they all came together and had a really cool kumbaya worship moment or something. Like I was waiting for the next. It's finished. Where's the cherry on top of the wall being completed? But the story simply doesn't end there. Because just because something's finished doesn't mean everything is right. Sometimes what looks complete from the outside is still compromised on the inside. Sinclair Ferguson put it this way. He said, visible progress in God's work can coexist with hidden disobedience in God's people. Look at verse 17. All during this time, letters were going back and forth constantly between the nobles of Judah and Tobiah. We'll call him Toby because that's the worst name ever. Many of the nobles, if you're an Office fan, you get it. If you're not an Office fan and you know somebody named Toby, I'm joking. It's a joke. Many of the nobles had ties to Toby because he was son-in-law, this is a good name too, maybe for sure the worst name ever, Shechaniah, son of Arah, and his son Jehonahan had married the daughter of Meshullam. I think I did that right, and if I didn't, you don't know either, so that's fine. They kept telling me all the good things that Toby did, and then would report back to him anything I would say. And then Tobiah would send letters to intimidate me. Here's what's going on. Nehemiah has led the people. He has rallied the troops. They have finished the wall. And then the very next verses, he brings in Ezra the high priest. They dedicate the temple and the wall. They read the law of Moses. Things are starting to progress. Everything on the outside looks like they have accomplished something. And then Nehemiah clues us in on something behind the curtain. Because so far in the story, we're kind of tracking it as it's unfolded. This happened, and then that happened, and this happened, and then that happened, and then this happened, and then that happened. And he goes throughout the story, and then this is the first time so far that he puts like something in parentheses. And what he's saying is, the entire time we have been rebuilding the wall, the entire time I have been rallying the people of Israel, the entire time the nobles who had repented publicly are still working behind my back. They've made a friend. They have an alliance to an old leader named Toby. And Toby's got his hooks set in them. And they would share everything Nehemiah would say in secret to Toby. And then Toby would write a nasty letter to intimidate Nehemiah. This was happening all along, even after the wall is finished. Warren Wiersbe, on this exact passage, said it like this: outward success did not eliminate inward danger. The work was finished, but the people were not yet fully separated from their old alliances. And the funniest part of this story is how unbelievably relatable it is to you and I, even this long later. Because we like looking on the outside like we are winning. Nobody posts the worst day of their life on Instagram. Nobody posts their average Monday on Facebook. We don't get in a group of friends and say, oh yeah, I took out the trash yesterday, it was great. No, what do we tell them? Our wins, our successes, our Sunday clothes, the cute family photo. Those are the things that we share because we prioritize what it looks like on the outside more than we care about what's happening on the inside. They had moved into a new season, but tried to keep old relationships alive. They had moved into a new era of Israel and of their nation. They had just accomplished great work using the name of God. God had even blessed it and honored it, but they still have ties to their old ways. On the outside, they moved not just the people of Israel, but even those around them. They inspired with their outward obedience. We're building the wall because God told us to. But on the inside, they were still connected to their old ways. But we don't do things like that, right, Christian? Like, I remember as a kid growing up, our family arguing in the minivan, the Chevy Astro van. That was a good van. On the way to church. Then we'd all hop out and we'd button up our shirts, and we'd walk into church together while we were all screaming at each other 5 minutes beforehand. Some of you did that on the way to church today. Arguing or bickering or teasing, and then you come here and you got to put on the front. We're so good at making sure on the outside everything looks okay. So we smile for the family photos. We laugh at our boss's jokes. We say we're on that side. And then we talk and bash behind closed doors because we prioritize what it looks like from the outside, even though sometimes we're unraveling on the inside. Toby, many of the nobles had ties to him. He was influential. He was important. He was a guy that people wanted to know. He was the name that people liked to drop. And now here comes Nehemiah, and something incredible in Israel is happening, and the wall is being rebuilt, and Nehemiah is sharing his table, and he's got all of the resources, and he has the king's blessing, and we're watching God do something great, and they want what's next, but they want to hold on to what was. And so they're being eaten alive from the inside out. And they're in the work. They're rebuilding the wall. They're contributing financially. They're giving their families and their time to labor and rebuilding. They are helping. They are sharing meals together. They are part of what God is doing in Israel. Sharing in the provision, experiencing the blessing. And they are looking at a finished wall, a new season, a new era, a new hope for a nation. God came through for them. But what they haven't recognized yet is that if you and I want to step fully into obedience with God, then we can't hang on to the old things and the old ways. We don't get to say, I love God, and our heart be far from him. We don't get to say, I'm a believer, and then in quiet places, secret places, the unseen places, do what these nobles were doing to Nehemiah. They want the new season, but they want to keep the old clout. They want to move forward physically, but they want to keep their ties relationally and spiritually. And they've rebuilt a wall, but they haven't rebuilt their relationships, rebuilt their loyalties, rebuilt their commitments. And me and you are guilty of the same thing every single day. We ask God for the new. God, give me a new season. Give me a new job. Give me a new friend. Give me a new part of my life. Give me something exciting. Or, hey, God, help me finish this project or this thing in my life. Or help me bring this full circle. And we beg God to be a part of those things, those new freedoms, those new adventures. And then when he brings it, what do we try to do? We try to pack our luggage and bring some of it with us into the new life that Jesus offers. The old habits, the secret compromises, try to keep the same old voices in our heads, the same people speaking into our lives. Now, granted, the work is finished. The wall's done. And God did it, and they participated in it. God can still bring you and I into new seasons, but it doesn't mean that he's going to bless the old things you drag along into it. Because you and I, we can't fully step into what God has for us. Maybe for you it's a relationship or marriage or parenting or a new job or a new city or whatever it is for you. You're stepping into something new. But then you're still trying to hold on to what God asked you to leave behind. I'm guilty of it too. We have modern day Tobys all around us. And they're not always just people that influence us. Some of the Tobiahs that I'm staying connected to are ways or practices or habits or addictions or whatever it is in your life that you're like, I want to honor God and I want to worship him and I'm seeing him move in my life and in my family and in my mind and in my relationships, but I still have these things that I'm not sure that I'm ready to let go of. Paul warns the church in 2 Corinthians chapter 6. He says, don't become partners with those who reject God. How can you make a partnership out of right and wrong? That's not partnership, that's war. Is light best friends with dark? Does Christ go strolling with the devil? Do trust and mistrust hold hands? Who would think of setting up pagan idols in God's holy temple? But that is exactly what we are. Each of us a temple in whom God lives. God himself put it this way, I'll live in them, move into them, I'll be their God, they'll be my people. So leave the corruption and compromise, leave it for good, says God. Don't link up with those who will pollute you. I want you all for myself. I'll be a father to you. You'll be sons and daughters to me. The word of the Master, God. I don't know what your Tobiahs are. I know what some of mine are. But if we're all honest before God and with ourselves, we can all admit, okay, I want this new life that Jesus is offering, and I'm watching myself step into it. But I've got so many strings connected to my old life, I'm not sure I can let those go. It's the battle that every follower of Jesus faces. Do we want all of what God has for us? If the answer is yes, then I have to let go of the things he doesn't want for me. And this is kind of interesting how Nehemiah handles this. Like, he's mentioned some of the stuff that was happening on the inside and some of the dysregulation that was happening in relationships. But this is the first time he's been detailed about who, what, and where it happened. He says it was these nobles with their old relationships and their old connections and their old alliances who would only speak good things about Toby to my face, and everything I would say, they would report back to them. This has been happening. And Nehemiah still was resolved to finish the wall. Nehemiah was still sharing his table with 150 plus people, feeding them all every single day for 52 days. He was still leading, still praying, still resolved, still loving, still inclusive, while he knew all of this was happening behind closed doors. And everyone saw the public fight on the outside. Him responding to his enemies, him responding to threats, him handling those who were openly opposing his work. But no one saw the private weight that he carried. No one saw the burden that he must have gone to bed every night with. I'm trying to honor God. I'm trying to obey. I'm trying to have others around me see what God could do for us. And all the while, some people who he calls friends are working behind his back with some guy named Toby. That's usually how it works. We get to see what people are up against publicly. Their job, their stress, their conflict, their political affiliation. But we rarely get to peek inside of what's really going on in someone else's mind, heart, and soul. We rarely get to see what someone else is carrying. The conversations, the doubt, the pressure. I call them the quiet battles of our heart. And Nehemiah never makes a big show of it. Now, if I'm Nehemiah, I'm calling those fools out quick. Like, I'm going to expose the letters they're writing. I'm going to call Toby out by name and make a shame of him. I'm going to try to excommunicate anybody who's in the way of what God is doing. He had every right to expose them and chose instead to carry it on his own. He just keeps going. He just keeps building. He just keeps feeding. He just keeps picking up another rock and throwing it on the same wall. And he keeps responding to the people with inspiration, correction, and wisdom. He stays steady and faithful when underneath it all, someone else was working against him. That's the kind of person most of us are. Like, you're not getting public praise for the times that you've won the quiet battles in your heart. Like, yeah, you graduate, we celebrate. You retire, you celebrate. You throw a touchdown, great, the crowd goes wild. But what happens when you're just quietly faithful to your spouse? What happens when you say no to indulging in things that you know you shouldn't? What happens when you tell the truth when you could have told a lie? The stuff that goes on inside that nobody else sees, nobody else celebrates, nobody else applauds. How did he pull this off? I have to say it must be his relationship with God. All those little prayers he would insert throughout this book so far, that just must have been how he handled it. Hey, Toby wrote another letter. Toby, my gosh. God handled Toby. All right, guys, let's get to work today. Let's start on this section of the wall. Hey, Toby wrote another letter. Toby was saying these things. Toby, God, will you please handle Toby? Okay, guys, we need to talk about the temple. We need to talk about what's next. We need armed guards at the gates. We need to work on this. He was still focused on the task while being undermined by Tobiah. So the only source of steadiness he must have had was just be like, okay, God, that's you, and I'm going to do me. Quick prayers, steady obedience, resolve, a quiet reliance on God that nobody's going to celebrate, that nobody's going to applaud. I have to give him some credit for this, because I think all of us can relate to fighting unseen battles. I think all of us can relate to writing letters with Tobiah. Have those old connections, the old relationships, the old habits, the old practices. And we can find ourselves so quickly in these stories because this is a story about a bunch of human beings. Jesus, however, is different. He doesn't just see things everyone else sees. He doesn't just see your highlight reel. He sees the battles you're fighting behind closed doors. He sees your depression and your anxiety. He sees your fear and your worry. He sees the lust and your pain. He sees all of it. He sees the stuff that no one else knows about. And his encouragement to us is keep going. John Ortberg, in his book, The Me I Want to Be, put it like this: surrender is the glad and voluntary acknowledgement that there is a God and it is not me. His purposes are often wiser and better than our desires. Jesus doesn't come to rearrange the outside of our life the way we want. He comes to rearrange the inside of our life the way God wants. In surrender, I let go of my life. It is a Copernican revolution of the soul in which I take myself out of the center of the universe and place God there. I yield to him. I offer obedience. I do what he says. This is what separates Jesus and his way, Christianity, from every other system of the world. Because what they offer is behavior modification. Just change what you do on the outside and eventually it'll work its way inside. Monkeys can modify their behavior. And that's what we keep being offered. Self-help. Just try this. Affirm yourself these things in the morning and tell yourself it's going to be a good day and then you'll probably have a good day. Let's work from the outside in, right? You got to dress the part, we tell people. Like, dress to impress. If you dress that way, then maybe you'll feel that way too. Religion. Modify your behavior. Do these and don't do those, and then God will change you. And it's not the way of Jesus. The gospel doesn't start with your behavior and my behavior. It doesn't start with a list of do's and don'ts. It starts in our hearts. Anyone can modify behavior, but only God can change our hearts. And that's the way of Jesus. He doesn't ask us to take on more do's and don'ts. It's a life of learning to let go of things, unlearning the ways and practices, unhitching from the Tobiahs, and clinging on to the only thing that is good, Jesus. I think that is the way that the church sometimes misrepresents God. Like, get your life together. Like, play the part and see what God does. And then you have Jesus and everyone he encountered and everything he said was the opposite. Come to me, those who are weary and heavy laden. I'll give you rest. Come to me, those who are blind. I'll make you see. He said, I didn't even come to seek and save those who were healthy. I came for the sick, for the sinner. Isn't that the glory of the gospel, that even while you and I were at our worst, both on the inside and the outside, Jesus dies for us? I think the pressure of Tobiah is real. It's modern day equivalent of just an idol. I just want to keep something in my life that I know that doesn't belong, just in case this Jesus thing doesn't work out. And some of you are fine. Like you're like, I've cut those ties. I've moved on. I've entered that new season. Jesus is changed me from the inside out. But now I have some other things. I got people behind me. I'm fighting quiet battles that no one else sees. They don't know what they said about me or what they did to me, or they don't know the thoughts that bounce around in my head when I'm alone, or they don't know what I'm really going through. And you're like Nehemiah, just going, I'm trying to be steadily faithful to my kids and my family and my spouse and my church and my work, but nobody knows what I'm carrying. I came to tell you today, someone does. And his name's Jesus. Robert Murray McCheyne, probably my favorite preacher to ever live, put it like this. He said, what we are before God is all that we are and nothing more. He knows everything about me and loves me anyway. So, here's the question. What are the things in your life that you're still holding on to that you know God said to let go of? I'll just let that question sit right there, because that's enough for like 2 more months of sermons, right? Okay, I probably shouldn't. I've been doing, I never really let, you know what it is. I don't. I know what mine are. If you really want the full life that Jesus is offering you, you got to let those go. You have to cut those ties. You have to stop the letters that are going back and forth. You have to stop playing both sides. You have to commit and surrender your life fully to Jesus, or do not expect all the blessings that come with it. Some of us live beneath our privileges, not because God isn't good to us, but because God can't bless us when our hands are closed and we're clenched to our old ways or our old opinions or our own ideologies. But when I go, okay, God, I'm going to let go of those things, I find myself in a position to receive the things he has for me. Love and affection and growth and inspiration and strength and fortitude and a steady faithfulness like Nehemiah. I love that he told us this part of the story, because it's not very Hollywood of him. It's like, hey, we finished the wall. Like it should be like the end of, Star Wars, where they're all celebrating and there's trumpets and weird aliens all over the place, right? Like, the wall is finished. This is exciting. This is monumental. This is amazing. Where's the celebration? And he's like, hey, the wall is finished. And the work is physically done. But there is a process in which we are going to have to change, not from the outside in like the world does, but from the inside out. There's going to have to be ties that are cut. And I handled this battle quietly and steadily and faithfully, and God still honored the work, but it didn't mean it was all easy. This was hard. That's what the writer of Hebrews tells the church in Hebrews chapter 12. He goes through a list in Hebrews 11. Some of the guys in here were included. He talks about David and Samson. He talks about Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Rahab, all these great stories of the Old Testament, all these people. They call it the Hall of Faith. It's this list of some of the greatest human beings to ever obey God and get recognized for it. And then he moves on after this inspiring list, and he says this: therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, those people he listed, let us also lay aside every weight, every sin, which clings so closely, all the Tobiahs, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint of heart. Nehemiah and the people finished the wall. We're humans. We're good at fixing the outside. We are. You can fool your spouse, your closest friends and family, your children, your church, and your neighbors. Everything on the outside looks good. But notice, Jesus is not the author and perfecter of our outside. He's the author and perfecter of our inside. That's how he wants to work. And it's funny, when you and I prioritize the inward work of God, the stuff that happens that no one else sees, the ways in which he's changing your mind and your heart and your disposition towards others. When you and I prioritize that, it's funny, the outside seems to just kind of handle itself. I don't have to work so hard at putting up a front because Jesus is changing me in the complete opposite way that I have tried my whole life to change myself. That is the invitation for you and I. Yeah, the wall's done, but the work on the inside is just getting started. Same as of our faith. We call it justification. Jesus has saved me. Yes, but now we go through something called sanctification, where Jesus starts to pull all the little things and all the little Tobiahs out of our hearts to make us more and more like him. And that, friends, does not happen overnight, but it does happen as you and I remain faithful. Let's pray. God, we thank you for this story. And thank you for not making it so Hollywood, so inspirational that we forget that in all that work there were quiet, unseen, and uncelebrated battles. And it's so easy for us, Jesus, as we follow you in this day, in this age, in this country, to look around and compare. Look how good they're doing, and look how great that looks, or look how happy they are. Would you just remind us that we have no idea their unseen battles? And it feels so easy to feel isolated and alone, that we're the only ones going through it. Jesus, thank you for also being good enough not just to fix our outside life, but patient enough with us to help us fix our inside life, to transform not just our outward appearance, but to transform our hearts. I pray for anyone in this room with old ties. It's like on the front of their mind that's just thinking about it right now. I pray, God, that you would give them the courage to obey you in cutting those old ties to those old ways. And God, I pray a special blessing over anyone in this room who is right now fighting an inward battle, something no one else can see. Would you show up in that space right there with them? Thank you for loving us, even when we still have connections to our old ways. Thank you for being patient with us. Thank you for changing us, not from the outside in, but doing what we cannot do for ourselves. Change us from the inside out. In Jesus' name, everybody said together, amen. Let's stand up and sing this last song.